If Terminator 2D No Fate hooked you, I already know exactly the kind of game you enjoy. No nonsense, 2D action, hardcore arcade vibes, polished pixel art, and that just one more level feeling until the sun comes up. So today, I'm giving you 10 recommendations that hit the same note. Games with brawling, shooting, adrenaline, and retro style. If you love the energy of No Fate, this video is a must-watch for you. I'm Matthew, and the video starts now. If you enjoyed the hardcore arcade pace of Terminator 2 No Fate, Super Cyborg is the kind of game that feels like a direct love letter to classic run and guns, non-stop action, pixel-perfect jumps, and constant shooting. It markets itself exactly as a hardcore action game where you control a battle cyborg sent to investigate anomalies on a mysterious island. And that sets the tone. You didn't come here for a stroll, you came to survive. The story is delightfully simple and efficient. Scientists accidentally wake up a brutal alien called the Zerschel life form. And now humanity is hanging by a thread, so the game drops you on this island as the last line of defense. What I love here is that sci-fi B-movie vibe that makes no apologies. It's all giant threats, biological monsters, and that constant feeling that anything on the screen can delete you in 2 seconds. Structure-wise, it gets straight to the point. 7 stages full of hordes of creatures and boss fights that the official text itself describes as some of the most intense in the game. And this is where it speaks to those who loved No Fate. The pleasure isn't in seeing the story, but in learning the patterns, mastering the space, maintaining control in the chaos, and powering through every section with reflexes and grit. There are 2 seasonings that I always think elevate this type of game. You can play solo or in local co-op, and it also brings variety with different weapons, alternate firing modes, and various difficulty levels. In practice, it's that perfect game for when you want an honest challenge, no filler, and that retro flavor that makes you say, just one more try, until you realize an hour has passed. Steel Assault is a 16-bit pixel art action platformer developed by Zenovia Interactive and published by Tribute Games, released on the 28th of September 2021 PC, Switch, and other platforms. What grabs me here is how the game swaps traditional run and gun for more melee-focused combat while still maintaining that arcade aggression. You play as Taro Takahashi, a resistance soldier on a revenge mission in a devastated US, facing a regime led by Magnus Pierce. Honestly, this completely changes the feel of the combat. Instead of just melting the screen with bullets, you are constantly positioning yourself, moving in and out of enemy range, playing a game of risk and reward. The star of the gameplay is the 8-directional electric whip, which gives the game its own identity, and especially the zipline system, which works like a unique grappling hook. You create a cable between points and move in various directions, so the game becomes a dance between attacking, jumping, double jumping, sliding, and this highly technical movement. For me, that's where it connects with fans of tough but fair games. It gives you simple tools but demands real mastery. And it even features difficulty modes and an arcade mode with no checkpoints, that classic 1-credit challenge. Plus, there's one more thing that easily wins over fans of serious retro aesthetics. Steel Assault embraces a 16-bit post-apocalyptic sci-fi look and turns it into a pixel art spectacle, with stages that feel like levels in the truest sense, as if it were a lost cartridge from an alternate era. If Terminator 2D No Fate left you wanting more 2D adrenaline with a classic taste, Steel Assault is the natural next step. Gunlord X takes place in an open world with 11 massive stages where you must face foul creatures, destroy cybernetic fortresses, and prepare for epic boss battles that look like they were plucked from an action fan's dream. The gameplay is fluid, allowing you to shoot in multiple directions, explore caves, find secrets, and enjoy loose, dynamic physics reminiscent of Turrican, but with its own personality. It's one of those games where the simple act of destroying everything in front of you is captivating and addictive. The visuals are one of Gunlord X's greatest strengths. The pixel art is detailed, the landscapes are expressive, and every setting has its own charm, from floating mountains to abomination factories. The sound also deserves a shout out, with a soundtrack that transports you straight back to the Amiga and Mega Drive days, making everything even more immersive. The game isn't just about running and shooting. There's exploration, weapon variety, and a world that invites you to discover every corner. If you're a fan of retro games, frantic action, and simple but engaging stories, Gunlord X is an experience that won't leave you indifferent. It doesn't pretend to revolutionize the genre, but it delivers everything a run-and-gun fan expects. Plenty of destruction, challenging bosses, exploration, and a sense of freedom that few games manage to provide. It's one of those titles that, after playing, makes you want to go back and find every hidden detail on the map. If you love intense action games full of style and personality, Slave Zero X is a title you cannot pass up. The game is a 2-5D beat-em-up set in a dystopian biopunk world where the protagonist Sho merges with an alien armor called X to face the tyrant Sovkhan and his monstrous creatures. The visuals are a nostalgic mix of classic sprites and stylized 3D environments, creating an atmosphere that feels straight out of the 90 seconds but with a modern finish and high visual impact. The combat is the highlight of the game. Fast, brutal, and layered. Sho masters a katana and has a variety of moves that allow for creative combos and air juggles, along with a parry and dodge system that demands focus and timing. Burst is the most powerful resource, acting as a temporary super move that makes you invincible for a few seconds and restores health upon attacking. The game encourages you to experiment with combinations and dominate enemies rather than just mashing buttons, which provides a constant sense of progression as you learn enemy and boss patterns. The story is emotional and has a personal touch, especially the relationship between Sho and his partner Isamu, which forms the core of the game's drama. Sho fights not just for revenge, but to honor the memory of those he lost, facing internal dilemmas as his X armor seems to develop a life of its own. After the campaign, there is the Crimson Citadel mode, a challenge tower inspired by Devil May Cry's Bloody Palace, perfect for those who want to test their full potential and chase high scores. Despite some criticism regarding the narrative and level repetition, Slave Zero X delivers a unique experience for those who enjoy action games with soul, a frantic pace, and a look that makes you feel like you're back in the great arcade classics, but with a personality all its own. If you like a challenge, combos, and a good dose of drama, this game will surprise you.
Something more. Who is this?
I am the Sovereign Khan's oldest and most faithful servant.
If you enjoyed Terminator 2, know Fate for its heavy action, sharp combat timing, and that feeling of a screen packed with enemies, there is one game you need to play: Volgarr, the Viking 2. It's one of those hardcore platformers that draws heavily from 80 seconds and 90 seconds aesthetics, but with a very striking visual identity, all in pixel art, filled with Norse mythology, Vikings, dragons, and monsters that look like they came from an epic tale. The game preserves the spirit of one button, one attack, zero leniency, but with a more modern and accessible design than the original. Volgarr remains a warrior who must traverse stages full of traps, enemies, and giant bosses, all with a difficulty level that requires perfect timing for jumps, attacks, and defense. The game is relentless. One mistake and the Viking dies, restarting at the checkpoint. But what keeps me hooked on this style is precisely that sense of progress. Every time you master a section, every flawless jump, every damage-free attack sequence feels like a personal victory. The action is fast, but requires calm, patience, and heavy pattern memorization, especially with the bosses, which are true gauntlets. The second game brings more worlds, new enemies, and a higher number of endings, adding a very satisfying layer of replayability for completionists. The world is inspired by Norse mythology, featuring frozen landscapes, burning villages, cursed temples, and even underground areas filled with grotesque creatures. The story follows a Vikings versus apocalypse style without much text, but the visuals and soundtrack help create a heavy, epic atmosphere, making you feel like a hero walking toward your own private Ragnarok. If you enjoy beat-em-up style encounters with a platforming twist, Volgarr the Viking 2 is a perfect companion for fans of Terminator 2, No Fate. It isn't the kind of game that mixes many combos or skill systems, but rather the kind that proves your skill through jumping, timing, and memory. After playing for a few hours, I quickly understood why this game is so beloved by fans of difficult games. It's not just a grind, but a fair, well-made challenge that is incredibly satisfying when you finally master an impossible stage. Gravity Circuit takes the DNA of 2D action classics like Mega Man X and Mega Man Zero and wraps it in a modern package with clean pixel art, a synthwave-style soundtrack, and a very fast pace. The game puts you in the shoes of the robot Kai, a lone warrior in a futuristic world dominated by robots and filled with enemies, traps, and giant bosses. The sense of fluidity is so good that once you master the moves, you'll want to try speedrunning it. Combat is the strong suit. Instead of relying only on a rifle, Kai fights with his fists, delivering punches, knees, and combos that launch enemies into each other. The game encourages you to use your hook to grab enemies and hurl them, creating chaotic and highly rewarding combos. There's a skill system called Burst that functions as super attacks, and you buy these chips in the hub between stages, allowing you to build a custom kit with up to 4 bursts and 3 passive abilities. What got me addicted was precisely this progression. Every new power opens up a new way to face challenges, making the game even more dynamic. The main campaign has 12 stages, each with a different theme: industrial, cyber, urban, frozen, etc. And a boss at the end, following the classic action game blueprint. The levels mix tight platforming, mass combat, and small navigation puzzles, all designed to take advantage of the hook and Kai's agile controls. The game also has a touch of exploration. Each stage is full of secrets, lost civilians, and hidden items, and rescuing civilians unlocks new powers. Although relatively short, around 3-4 hours on a first playthrough, the game compensates with a hard mode and a bonus challenge that swaps your health for burst energy, massively increasing the stakes. For fans of games like Terminator 2, No Fate Gravity Circuit delivers a very similar experience in terms of intensity. Plenty of action, pools of enemies, vertical combat, and a fast rhythm. It isn't as brutal as Terminator in terms of difficulty, but it focuses more on flow and style, almost like an action platformer with a beat-em-up twist. If you like evolving your character, mastering combos, and going through well-designed stages with beautiful visuals, this game will fit perfectly on your list. It's definitely worth playing, especially if you want something between Mega Man X and a modern action side-scroller. Super Alloy Ranger is the kind of game you play and think, Okay, this was made by people who love run and gun and classic platformers. It's a 2D side-scrolling action platformer with that feel of clearing stages through grit and reflexes, focusing heavily on mobility, running, jumping, dashing, air dashing, wall climbing, and double jumping. The game encourages aggressive, stylish play rather than just walking and shooting on autopilot. The story hook has a classic sci-fi cartoon vibe. Kelly and Rambos are hunting a criminal named Lamos. They end up trapped on an abandoned planet by a protection field, and then the robot sisters. Number 2 and number 3 enter the scene. Meanwhile, a mysterious program infects the planet's mechanical army and begins an out-of-control evolution. It's the kind of premise I like because it doesn't try to be high cinema. It exists to throw you into different settings, submerged city, frozen sea, and justify an escalation of mutant robots and absurd bosses. The ace in the hole for me is how it gives you 2 distinct ways to play. Kelly is more of a shooter, changing her shots with attribute chips and even charging shots to alter their effects. While combat robot number 2 leans into melee with different weapons, attacks, claws, swords, spears, etc., and an energy system that, when built up, releases a death blow based on the equipped chip. This difference in identity between characters is exactly what gives the game replayability. I love it when a 2D game lets you choose your style of violence instead of just swapping a skin. And yes, there are massive bosses, the kind that become a trial by fire at the end of the stage, promising bullet barrages and giant machines like mechanical aircraft, aggressive aquatic robots, and even a battle fortress. Visually, it goes for dynamic pixel art and embraces classic references. The game's own material cites inspirations like Metal Slug and Mega Man. If you like that spectacle of well-animated sprites in frantic action, it delivers that feeling. Super Alloy Ranger is the game I'd recommend for anyone who wants 2D arcade energy. Learn the patterns, master the movement, and destroy machines until the screen is clear. Mechstermination Force is 100% a boss rush game, meaning zero filler, no traditional levels, no common mobs to farm, and no exploration moments. It's just you, your rifle, and 14 colossal robots that need to be dismantled piece by piece. And when I say colossal, I mean it literally. These megamechs are larger than skyscrapers, coming in the form of humanoids, animals, tanks, dragons, and other metallic freaks that exist only to make you rethink your life choices. The gameplay has that perfect balance between run and gun and a 2D Shadow of the Colossus. You start by shooting yellow weak points, which take bullet damage, but the red cores only explode if you get into melee range and hit them with a sledgehammer or a baseball bat. This forces you into danger, climbing the robot while it's firing lasers at you, jumping, and trying to crush you or throw you into a lava pit. It's this mechanic that turns every fight into a real-time survival puzzle. As you progress, you unlock magnetic gloves to climb metal surfaces, double jump boots for mobility, and you can buy different weapons, flamethrowers, lasers, bombs, that work better against specific bosses. The controls are precise, and the bosses telegraph their moves correctly, so when you die, it's because you messed up, not because the game cheated. The difficulty curve is challenging, but fair. What I like most is that the game doesn't hold your hand. You will die, you'll have to restart the fight from scratch, even if you were almost killing the boss. And you'll need to learn the patterns of each phase of the robot to advance. It's not that frustrating gotcha kind of hard, it's the kind of hard that makes you think, okay, now I get the timing, let's go again. And it has local co-op, so if you want to bring a friend along to suffer or make life a bit easier, the option is there. Visually, the game is hand-drawn with beautiful graphics, an exciting soundtrack, and settings that change significantly between fights. The story is simple. It's 2024 for ironic, right? The world is invaded by megamechs, humanity is destroyed, and you are part of the Mechstermination force, basically, the last hope. It's not an Oscar-winning script, but it doesn't need to be. The game knows you're there to blow up giant robots, and it delivers that masterfully. Mechstermination Force is the game I'd recommend for those who want that epic boss feeling without the fluff. Pure action, balanced challenge, and the satisfaction of finally taking down a metal titan after 8 minutes of tension. If Terminator 2D made you feel that man versus machine adrenaline, this is the next level. You literally scale the machine while it tries to kill you. It's direct, intense, and addictive in all the right ways. Cyborg Force is a Contra-style run-and-gun released in 2023 by Neo Byte Force for the Neo Geo, yes, Neo Geo in 2023, later ported to Dreamcast, Steam, and other platforms. The premise is simple: you are part of humanity's military elite and must save the universe. Choosing from 8 different cyborg characters, each with their own style, and jumping into stages filled with shooting, platforming, and score chasing. It even has cutscenes, which isn't common for arcade games of this type, and a variety of 10 different weapons to experiment with as you progress. Now, here comes the honest part. This isn't a technically perfect game. Visually, it doesn't quite hit the classic Neo Geo graphics standard. The graphics are more 16-bit okay than Neo Geo beautiful. There are some occasional collision detection issues and a certain jank that's hard to describe, but that you feel when you play. It's not as polished as, say, a Metal Slug. But here's the thing. What it loses in visual polish, it tries to make up for with classic arcade fun and variety of content. The characters control well overall, and the gameplay is executed in a decent and fun way despite the imperfections. The big differentiator, or problem, depending on your taste, is that Cyborg Force is not a run-like-crazy run-and-gun. If you try to rush through the levels like you would in Contra or Metal Slug, you will die a lot. The game requires you to go slow, learn enemy behavior, know where they respawn, and destroy everything on the screen before moving forward. Because if you leave enemies behind, like the flies or beetles, they come back and kill you from behind. You have 3 lives, and if you lose them all, you restart the entire stage. There are no generous checkpoints. There's also a time limit, so you can't stand still for too long, creating a tense balance between going fast and not dying like an idiot. The difficulty is brutal. Some say it makes Metal Slug look like kindergarten. It's the kind of difficulty that requires patience, pattern memorization, and precise timing. So, if you like a hardcore old-school challenge, the kind that frustrates but is addictive, you'll enjoy it. If you prefer something more accessible, you might get angry. Cyborg Force is that indie project I'd recommend to anyone who wants to feel the essence of a classic arcade with all the glory and limitations that brings. It's not a technical masterpiece, but it's a legitimate Neo Geo game made with passion in the middle of 2023, and that in itself is pretty surreal. Valfaris from Steel Mantis is the kind of game I recommend to anyone looking for a 2D arcade brawler with plenty of aggression and heavy metal vibes throughout. It's a 2D action platformer focused on combat and stage progression without trying to jump on the Metroidvania or Souls-like bandwagon. It's a straightforward, intense game with a push forward and survive rhythm, exactly how I like it. When I just want to sit down and feel the impact of every shot and strike. The combat forces you to switch weapons smartly. You have main slots for a sword, a secondary weapon, and special weapons. And the stronger weapons drain energy, so you can't just spam destruction for free. The catch is that your main weapon becomes a management tool. You hack through enemies and even the environment to make energy drop, fueling your aggression cycle. And this gives the game a delicious flow because it encourages you to be bold, get close, recover resources, and go back to blowing everything up. The atmosphere is a show in itself. Valfaris has an aesthetic that looks like a heavy metal album cover turned into a game level, with a grotesque world, bold colors, bizarre creatures, and a protagonist, Tyrion, who shows up with a here to clean house attitude that fits the game's over-the-top vibe. And the soundtrack isn't just background rock, it's part of the game's weight, with enough guitar and energy to turn every corridor into a war zone, the kind of sound that makes you play more aggressively without even realizing it. In terms of difficulty, it isn't impossible, but it isn't here to please those looking for a casual stroll. The challenge ramps up, the bosses force you to use your entire arsenal, and you will take some beatings until you understand what the game wants from you. At the same time, it has a cool risk and reward idea with the resurrection idols. You can use these items to strengthen your character or to create checkpoints, leading to that great tension of, do I save now and stay weaker, or push forward and bet that I can handle it? For those who enjoy 2D action with a bloodthirsty edge and want a game that isn't ashamed to be loud, violent, and stylish, Valfaris is mandatory.